Hi, welcome to the Semantics lecturette about topic time and tense. Topic time and tense go together really well, and we'll see that tense is a very interesting category as a result of linking essentially the topic time to the time of speech. So when we say the topic time, we simply mean the interval that a proposition is meant to be true for. This will give you the sense that you're talking about that time, and that's where the name comes from. And this topic time gives us a sort of cutoff effect that we'll be able to see or intuit in the meanings of sentences, especially those with past tense, where the tense appears. Now, this notion of topic time arose relatively recently, mainly in the work of people like Wolfgang Klein, and it contrasts with earlier theories that were pretty well received and popular, like that of Heinz Reichenbach in the 40s. For Reichenbach, tense expressed the relationship between the event and the speech time. So if I say George Bush was president, that's in the past tense, and it would be in the past tense because the event of George Bush being in the past is in the past. But Klein found a number of examples where the time of the event is in the present, but past tense is the only felicitous answer. So, for instance, if I say, if I ask you to go check on Anna, if she's in her room, and I say, where is Anna? You'd say, she's in her room. But if I wanted to know where she was 5 minutes ago, I say, if I see Anna in her room, and I wonder where she was 5 minutes ago, and I say, where was she 5 minutes ago? Then it's felicitous for you to say, she was in her room. It's not really felicitous to say she is in her room. So her being in the room is a present event, because I can see it happening. But we would have to use past tense in that reply. And for Klein, the reason is because there's an additional time that is actually the focus of tense. And he calls this the topic time. So the topic time, right? It's the interval about which we are making our assertion. So when I say she was in her room, I'm talking about 5 minutes ago, and no other time matters for the truth or falsehood of that proposition. You can think of other examples like that. If I say it was raining, right, that's true or false based on the facts at some particular moment or interval that's relevant. So if you ask, how was the weather yesterday, my answer is going to be about yesterday. It's not going to be about some other time. And there's a number of different effects like that. So Klein has another example where if you see a book on the table and the book is in Russian, and you're recounting this story later, you would have to use past tense. You'd say, there was a book on the table, it was in Russian. And you have to use past tense even though it's true that the book is still in Russian. Books don't change their language. But because you're only talking about what was relevant then, you use past tense. So topic times are an important part of discourse, and every sentence essentially has one. And if we're not on the same page in a conversation with regards to topic time, then we get incoherence. So for instance, if you have a conversation where, say, Adeline says, did you have a good time? And her topic time is the picnic yesterday. And Jacques says, no, it was raining. But his topic time is the game after the picnic, where it was raining. Then maybe they're both saying completely true things. But because they're not talking about the same topic time, we get an infelicity. And so Adeline gets confused. Well, it wasn't raining, right? And so we end up with an incoherence in conversation. Now, sometimes this constriction effect can be used for comedy, or for cruelty, I guess, depending on your perspective. So, for instance, if Jacques and Adeline went on a date, And Jacques says, oh, you looked so beautiful. And his topic time is just this date. Right? Then he's not saying anything about any of the rest of the time. So maybe she was beautiful then, maybe she wasn't. You can use that for comedic effect and say, well, I don't usually look good. And when she says that, she's changing the topic time. And it's creating an infelicity, and that's where the humor, that created infelicity is where the humor comes from. So, topic times end up being very useful. And topic times also produce an interesting effect that's called a lifetime effect. And this is an implication of death that you get with past tense. You've probably heard the expression talking about someone in the past tense. And the reason why that works is because of a topic time. And it depends on the predicate, though. So if I say Jacques was Canadian, then we get the implicature. We can infer that he's dead. Or if I say Jacques was a veteran. A veteran is something you become and then you never stop being one. So if he was one, then it seems like he's not around anymore. And the reason why that works is that because typically when we talk about someone's veteran status, the topic time is their entire life. And so if that topic time is in the past, we can infer that their life was in the past too. But we can cancel this effect. Right? So if I say, talking about a trip to Montreal, and I say, not Montreal, there's a lot of Canadians there. I'm talking about a trip to Boston, and then I run in and I talk about how I ran into my friend Marie, and I say, oh, Marie introduced me to her friend Jacques. He was Canadian. In that case, then we don't get the effect that he's dead. And the reason that we don't is because now the topic time isn't Jacques' life. The topic time is just this meeting event. And so during that time he was Canadian. And so we don't get a problem. Right? We're not talking about his Canadianness at any other time. So how does tense exactly work then? All right, well, for climb we have the topic time. And then tense will express a relationship between the topic time and the utterance time, or the time of utterance, and the speech time. And we've seen in the reading that this isn't always essentially the utterance time, but that's a complication we'll get to later. But for essentially, if we imagine an arrow of time, we can mark the utterance time like so. And past tense says that the topic time precedes the utterance time. And we can imagine that the topic time, we can draw it as kind of an oval linking two areas and mark it like this. And we can use this time diagram to visualize this tense relation. And past tense is always this. Topic time is somewhere before the utterance time. It might be right before, it might be far beyond, but as long as it's before. Present tense will overlap with the utterance time. So in some theories, people would say that it equals the utterance time. And we're going to do something a little weaker and say that it overlaps the utterance time. And then, of course, then future would involve the utterance time preceding the topic time. And that's tense. Those are the three basic tenses. Tenses can get a little more complicated, though, because a lot of languages will be more precise, especially with past tense. And then we'll see some other complications as well, whether present tense is more equals to or involves overlap. And then there's a lot of question about whether or not the future is actually a tense or whether it's something modal in nature. But those are issues we can get to in the future. But that's the simple bit of tense. It involves a relationship between the topic time, not the event time, but the topic time and the utterance time. And now we can start thinking about how we get the event time to link to the topic time.